it's not quite up to what it needs to be. Hi friends, welcome to Canadian Cutting Edge, and yes, I shaved. I made a mistake. By the way, we're going to look at this knife today. This is the Kizer Beaver 2. It's the clip point, Bowie, however you want to say it, style, small knife. 2 3/4 inches, 2.5 inches cutting edge on this thing. You know, it's a small knife that Kizer says is for, doing, skinning and cleaning out critters and stuff as a little secondary knife, a little secondary hunting knife is basically what they're saying this thing is. And I'm going to tell you what I think of this thing. But first, you're wondering, how did this happen? Did he do that on purpose? Well, I meant to do this because it was getting kind of scraggly and stuff back in here, and I was going to just trim it down. And I went here first, but I didn't do this. I did this. I forgot to put this piece on. So that explains this. Should I grow it back? What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Anyhow, this knife. What do I think of this knife? Well, I might upset some people. I don't know. I don't watch other people's reviews. I don't know what people are thinking about this knife, but my thoughts are not all that happy. It's rather unfortunate. I had high hopes for this knife. I've reviewed a number of Kizer knives. I've never had any kind of relationship with Kizer. They've never sent me anything for free, although I really would love it if they did, because they're a really good knife company. But this knife, this is a miss. And if you want to know why I think this is a miss, watch the video. I'll do a teardown and everything. I'm recording this intro after. I usually record the intro before. But I go through a number of things. One thing you're going to notice is I keep having my video drop out because my battery keeps dying on my camera. I need to stop buying batteries off of Walmart. I think I'm going to have to bite the big bullet and get them directly from Panasonic if I want the batteries to last and be half decent. So there might be a few little jumpy spots in this video where it jumps from one thought to the next, or the video just cuts out a little bit. But hey, that's the way it is. If you want to know what my deep down and dirty and good thoughts, because there are some good thoughts about this thing too, are about this knife with the sheath that they give, watch the video. I'll do a teardown. I'll do a full set of measurements, my own measurements that I do in-house here at Canadian Cutting Edge. By the way, I got this knife through White Mountain Knives. The only relationship I've ever had with White Mountain Knives is he gives me a reviewer discount. And he gives you guys a discount if you use my code CCE at checkout. You get 10% off. I don't get a commission. I don't get anything else. I just get a reviewer's discount, which amounts to about 25% off for the knives that I buy. And that's about it. But hey, I don't mind, because that's a whole lot better than I get from anybody in Canada, any knife company in Canada. Just talked to Blades Canada again this last week. No, they don't want to have anything to do with me as a reviewer. Even though I've got all these subscribers and lots of views and stuff, guess they just take their stuff for granted. So I'm going to continue my relationship with White Mountain Knives, and you can get them too. Fixed blades, slip joint knives, if you're in Canada, don't worry about getting them from White Mountain Knives. It'll ship through just fine. I can't guarantee it, of course, but the problem at the border is with locking folders. Those are the ones that they're stopping and confiscating. And that's why I get Dave in Nebraska to take those apart and ship me the handles and blades in separate packages. And those get checked, but they get through no problem. But we're talking about the Beaver 2. Let's get down to the tabletop and check it out in detail. All right, here she is. Yeah, like you saw from a distance before, it's a fairly small knife. Now, it's a chunky little buddy, but it's a fairly small knife. We've got over 1/8 of an inch thick here, 0.15 inches roughly. I'll give you the precise measurements later on in the video. And what is that, 2.5, or was it 2 3/4? 2.5. The sharp edge of the knife is about 2.5 inches. The full length is about 2 3/4 to the closest spot, actually to this spot up here on the spine, It's about 2 3/4, a little bit less right there. So definitely under 3 inches in this blade. What do I want to say about it? Well, it's got some cons, and let's just jump right to the chase. I'm not going to recommend this knife, but not dramatically so. Like, it's not a bad not recommend. It's just, it's not quite up to what it needs to be. And yeah, because what do they say? On their website, they say this thing. One of the things they say, probably the main thing they said this for, is like for gutting and skinning an animal. As a secondary, as a backup knife for that kind of thing. Backup knife for that? No. And I'll tell you why in just a minute. First, the sheath. So let's put that down there. What do we got? We've got a taco style sheath. So this is a nice thin strip of Kydex folded over, and there you go. The retention on it isn't great. The knife comes out a little too easily, because they also suggest different ways to use this, and one of the ways they suggest is as a neck knife. The problem with this thing is the retention's not good enough for a neck knife, or even to, you know, strap this onto your pouch. And they demonstrate in their pictures of it hanging upside down, and the blade just comes out too easily for that. Now, you could fix that at home without too much difficulty if you know what you're doing. You know, warm it up with a hair dryer or heat gun, better if you got a heat gun, and you know, you got to protect yourself from getting burned, but it's got to squeeze in there a little bit tighter. You know, back here would be the one spot to do it. You know, squeeze that down a little bit, and it's going to get the little better retention, maybe a lot better retention. You don't want to go too far. In any case, the retention's not great for carrying it upside down. Can you carry this thing scout carry? Now, this is one of those half-size, you know, tech lock-ish type of clips, which is pretty good. You know, these bars here can come out, so you can fit it into a fairly large belt, or, you know, a fairly small belt. And that's neither here nor there. And it works well for what it is, except for this is uncomfortable to carry, at least for somebody like me. Let's just imagine a belt in there. And then that's how high up into your ribs this thing is going to be sticking. Or, you know, unless you wear super low-rise pants, which, yeah, probably not if you're in the knife community, or a hunter. This is just not good to wear on your waist. Yeah, technically it can be carried scout carry, and it is holding on by 2 screws, but I'd much prefer it to be, you know, a pancake style sheath and then holding on both sides for scout carry. So yeah, you can do it scout carry. I just didn't like that. So I prefer a knife this size, even though it's, you know, thicker and chunkier. It's not super thick, to be a pocket carry. And nothing can beat the Ulti clip. So that's a good investment for this thing. It fits in there. You can do it different heights. If you don't want to do scout carry, you might be able to find one of these. This is even smaller than this, and it's thinner, so it's not going to stand off quite as far. It's not going to print, you know, on your shirt or whatever you got over top of your jeans or whatever. So this fits an 1.5 inch belt. I got this off of some other knife. You can buy these things on AliExpress pretty easily, different stuff. Just don't buy this on AliExpress. They've got fake ones of these, and yeah, you don't want those. I have been ordering some other belt clip stuff to test and things for different knives, and we'll do that in the future. Hopefully I'll have it for the next Kizer knife. But I don't like that. They should have done better options for that, in my opinion. Now, there is a drain hole right on the other side. You can't see it right now, but it's right by the tip of the blade right in there. So yeah, that's good. It's decent, but it's not great. They could have done better. Now, how about the knife itself? What did they do wrong that I don't recommend this knife? Well, I'm not going to say that AEBL is a bad choice for steel. They got it right there. And the badging's nice and small. I just would like it on the flats. This badging here is kind of nice, the Kizer, although I'd like that on the flats as well. It's not too big and in your face. But what is too big? The thickness behind the grind. This is a backup knife for skinning and gutting. Well, it's a great size for that. It's a great design shape for that. That's not what the con is. The handle's very comfortable for that. The jimping's great for that. I wish they would have jimped this up here as well. You know, this kind of control is really good to have. You got the jimping back here, and that goes into the palm of the hand. And then, you know, you've got that. If you're using your thumb, you know, working hard like this, that's not really gutting and cleaning an animal. That's heavy duty kind of cutting. This is the delicate kind of cutting, hand position, generally speaking. Of course, different cuts have different grips and stuff. So more jimping over here, but thinner at the edge. Thinner would be much nice. This is pretty thick, and I'll give you the measurements later on. It's way too thick right at the edge. This is how thick I'd want a knife to be if I was using it as a chopper. And AEBL is a tough steel, but then why did you only harden it to, you know, a big blade kind of hardness? AEBL is tougher the softer it is. The higher you get in the hardness, the less tough it is. Now, for this kind of knife, for its kind of purpose, for its size, you don't need an awful lot of toughness because it's not a chopper. It's not hitting impact. It's cutting soft materials, sinew, meat, fat, hide, you know, that kind of thing. You want it nice and thin. ABL has pretty good edge retention at the higher hardnesses, but this thing, what do they say? It's 57 to 60 Rockwell hardness. Now, that's decent for a chopper because you got to have the toughness that comes with it. But for this delicate knife, if you're going to use AEBL, make it harder so you lose a little bit of the toughness. Big deal, because it's still plenty tough for what it's going to be used for. But you're going to get better edge retention, and it'll, you know, work better for you in the long term. So I like AEBL. Don't get me wrong. That's not a bad steel. It's a really good steel. But for this case use, for this size of knife, for this purpose of knife, it's not the best choice. And then, though they did choose it, AEBL can be made plenty harder than Kizer says they've made it. I don't have a hardness tester, so I can't confirm. If they decided to stick with it, okay, but then at least go harder with it. I think I've beat that horse. So there's that. Way too thick, way too soft for what you want for this knife. More jimping would have been better. And, you know, the jimping here's nice. The jimping here is nice. We've got two T8 screws there to hold it together. I'll take it apart later on. So that's the main complaint I have in a nutshell that I've just given to you. It's the wrong steel at the wrong hardness for this knife design and size. Okay, this hole. I'm neither here nor there on it. It's no big deal. I never use it. It's way too big for a lanyard. Can use a lanyard just fine if you want to, but it helps, you know, balance the steel a little bit, balance the weight. The knife balance is right there on this knife, which is fine. I wouldn't mind it being a tiny bit further forward, but for that, yeah, they'd have to take off even more, you know, weight. So, yeah, the hole's just fine, no problem. We got this coarse micarta. By the way, you can also get it in D2, but with the D2, you get a nice gray wash finish and you get G10 handle scales, which is just fine too. And the price point's just a little bit less. So if you are going to get this, you know, I would suggest the D2 version. It's a better choice for what you get. But mainly, it really needs to be thinner. Okay, I've shut up on that already. Other good things, they put this chamfer right here on the handle. So your thumb can slide in there. And that's really good for doing this kind of thing again. Just your thumb sits there so very well. Nice and comfortable. Let's do the measurements. The weight of this knife, 95 grams. That's 3.3 ounces. So it's a chunky little buddy. That's the other thing. It doesn't need to be this thick. It doesn't need to be big, hard, heavy duty. You know, you can have it well under 1/8 of an inch for the kind of purpose that they say this is for. And for anything that you can do with a knife under 3 inches, yeah, it doesn't need to be this thick if it's going to be an actual user. Now, for looks, I know a lot of guys like having the big chunky knife. I was doing weight. Sheath, 55 grams, that's 2 ounces. So together, 150 grams, 5.3 ounces. Yeah, not terrible. Sharpness from the factory, on my best tester, I got a score of 190 bests. Not bad. The sharp edge length, so between my thumbnails there, 63.8 millimeters, 2.51 inches. Blade length, tip of the blade to the handle, 69.9 millimeters, 2.75 inches. Blade depth this way within the sharp area, the widest point's right there. That is 29.4 millimeters, 1.16 inches. The blade thickness right at the grind there. So where this main bevel ends and the apex or sharpening bevel starts, how thick is it right there? 0.9 millimeters, 35.5 thousandths of an inch thick. Way too thick. I'd actually say twice as thick as it needs to be, twice as thick as I'd want it to be for this kind of case use. So just a big honking thick chopper kind of apex thickness. It's just, ugh. The blade thickness itself up here, 3.94 millimeters, 0.155 of an inch. So yeah, very thick. You could take off a third of this thickness and that would make me quite a bit happier. Don't make it half of the thickness. That's a little bit too thin maybe, but yeah. The handle now, the handle length, so the micarta from my thumbnail to thumbnail right there, 82.6 millimeters, 3.25 inches. The handle thickness, not at the screws, those stick out, at the thickest part of the handle scales right here, 14.3 millimeters, 0.563, so a bit over half an inch, but that's fine for this. I don't mind, because if it's too thin, your hand's going to get tired too quick, using it for, skinning some critter. So there's that. The handle depth, this way within the grip area, the widest area is right about there, 28.6 millimeters, 1.12 inches. Your grip area, so between my thumbs, since it's rounded, this is just a rough kind of measurement, because where exactly do you measure it to? It's about 8 centimeters, 3 1/8 inches. Not bad. Like, my hands are extra large this way, and so it's totally within my hand, but with the extra jimping and stuff, that's fine. It's fine that way. Total length of this thing, I rounded the numbers just slightly, 152 millimeters, 5.99 inches. Price for this in United States, $55.99 US. The G10 version's a bit less. Like you saw on my shirt, White Mountain Knives, you get 10% off of that price. Or you can buy it from Kizer. I'll leave links down below for both. In Canada, if you want to buy it from a Canadian store, House of Knives or Blades Canada, they've got the same price. It's about $75 for the D2 version and $87 for this one. So the Canadian bucks, and there you go. Not bad. In general terms, I don't mind it. It's just could be better. It really could and should be better. Okay, I was taking this thing apart and do a teardown. My battery went dead, and I didn't notice when it went dead. So yeah, I'm doing a teardown. I just taken this screw out. I still have to take this screw out. If I have to record more of the other part, I will. I'll have to check when I get everything upstairs to see how it goes. I mentioned there's a little blue Loctite on here, but it's not very tight at all. So there's a little blue Loctite right there on the screws, fairly fine thread, and that comes out nice. We've got D-shaped pins here, and so these should just come right off. So these should just come right off. They didn't glue this, did they? Well, then why would they? Ah, come on. It's times like these that I wish I've watched other people do reviews. I don't watch any reviews because I don't want to be influenced by what other people say about knives. I want to just give you my straight opinion, straight up. No, that's moving. I can see it wiggle just a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go get something that I can pry underneath there without scratching stuff up. I'll be right back. I should be using, some thin plastic tools to sort of pry underneath there, but we'll see. I'm going to try to catch the inside because I don't want to. I'm not going to wreck anything if I scratch anything inside this hole. I'm trying to get just the other side of the steel and see if I can catch the inside of the liner to push it out a little bit. See if that works. That's what I'm going to try first. Just with a screwdriver, maybe something like this. That's not going to work. I'm not pushing very hard. I'm just trying to get it. Did they glue this on? That doesn't make any sense for them to glue this on. Well, now that I've recorded 99% of the video, I might go and look online and see, but let's try this. I've taken off the edge of this thing, so it's not super sharp right at the edge. That's not very sharp at all. It wouldn't be cutting paper very well. So I'm just going to use this to see if I can slide that between there. Yeah, see, of course, I'm going to do that kind of thing. Just scratch it a little bit. I can clean that up later on with just some really fine sandpaper, but is this side a little bit better? This blade's still a little bit too thick. Okay, that's underneath there a little bit. Nope. Nope, nope, nope. But it is moving, so it's not glued. Yeah, it's definitely moving. Yeah, no, it's not glued. I don't have to go watch some other video. That's not glued at all. There we go. I felt that move a little bit. I'm just prying ever so slightly with this thing. There we go. So I didn't scratch anything up. There's a pin there. Can you see that? There's a pin right there. Okay, there's probably pins at the back too. Let's get the other side of this pin. And let's just sort of lift it off. Just gently, gently, gently. Yeah, there's definitely going to be pins at the back because that's holding on really tight. Go back a little bit and then use the spine of this knife right here as a fulcrum. I'm going to push down right here, which will lift up right there. Yeah, that's moving a little bit. Just put a little bit of force. Just keep flexing it as it moves. Yep, starting to move. And just sort of walk it out. Now this is going to be fun putting it back together. If it's this tight coming apart, it's going to be tight going together. Okay, this is another con. I don't like this at all. Now, when it's together, yeah, the alignment and everything, I didn't mention it in the video, the steel and the orange G10 and then the micarta, it lines up. There's no hot spots, there's no sharp spots or anything. That's a really good thing. But loads of knives that I've reviewed have been that way. What? There's 3, focus right here. Look at that. There's 3 pins in there. 3 pins at the back and 1 at the front. What's going on? Okay, this side came loose. Oh, I guess the pins have been pulled down. Okay, wiggle that off. Okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to push those pins out, if I can. Now, the blade's kind of sharp, but yeah, because those pins went back in. Let's just walk it out. So, if I'm showing you all of this, I don't know if I'm going to edit all that out or not, but... Oh, but they've got 3 holes here. Whoa. Can you imagine if they would have done all 6 pins? They probably found that they were impossible to put this thing together if they used 6 pins. So, yeah, D-shaped holes. That's why it didn't spin. It's kind of nice. Skeletonizing here to help keep it lighter, to help balance it out a little bit. See, the handle scales don't add an awful lot because that balance is right there. And with the handle scales, the balance was right there. Closer to, see, that's the pin where the screw went through, and it was balanced pretty much over that. So these handle scales are very light. They don't add a lot. And especially for the use of this knife, having these extra holes in here, no big deal. Don't mind that at all. It's plenty tough enough. Yep, G10 with micarta. Kizer. Why? Why did you do that? Do you not trust your screws? Can't you make them align with these screws? Why do you have that? I'm going to go get some little pliers. I'm going to take these pins out. I'm going to put it together without the pins, see how it looks. Okay. If someone from Kizer's watching, I like your brand. You do a lot of really good stuff. I'm a fan. I like what you guys do. And I've reviewed a number of your knives, and most of them have been very good, very positive reviews. But whoever was the team lead on this knife, I think they lost their focus. They're focusing on the wrong stuff. Because this took money, this took effort, this took planning, it took designing, it took R&D, and they're focused on these pins and everything being really nice when they missed, the thickness of this edge. Like, that's the main thing, is the thickness of this edge. If the thickness of this thing was half the thickness it is right at the edge, that would be enough to tip this thing back into the, yeah, it's an okay knife for its case use, for its described case use, but, oh yeah, if somebody from there wants me to do knife reviews for them, I would really like to be sent Kizer knives. I've never been sent anything from Kizer. I've bought everything that I've got from, that I've reviewed of a Kizer. And I've got a few more Kizers to review. Another smaller knife like this. Let me see, just put that in there. Which way does it face? The back towards that hole. There you go. That's a snug fit. That indexes quite well. Okay, and this one is back towards the back as well. So put this D-shaped pin in there. Okay, yeah, I had another one of those. But I've got these pins in. And, the D-shaped pin's sitting there really, really well. So that's good. And it's snug. If I hold the knife blade, the handle scale's got very slight movement this way, but front to back, ever so tiniest. And that's when it's just loose like this. And that's pretty snug already. And if we put the other side on, and now we'll tighten these things up. Get that started there. Get this one started there. There we go. And now just snug them up. Not even tight. I'm just that tight. I'm trying to push hard with my thumb across the top and across the bottom handle scale. That's nice. Like, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Now let's just snug it up a little bit, the way I would if I was getting ready to go out in the field with it. Yeah, these pins are utterly unnecessary as far as I can tell. Like, I've got no use for them on this thing. And especially if I was using this thing for field dressing, for skinning, which is a quote, field dressing and skinning, that's what Kizer says this is for. I would hate to have to deal with those pins out in the field to take this thing apart, to clean it. Or after I got back home, I'm finished just cleaning out my deer or rabbit or whatever, And then I have to take this thing apart, try to get those pins out, and the trouble that I had to go through, the risk of, marring up everything, prying it out. Because you don't want blood and guts and, fat and oil and what have you. You don't want any of that inside between the liners and the blade. Sure, it's a stainless steel. Well, I get the D2 and it's not. It's still going to corrode. Stainless steel still can rust. And you don't want to have that kind of trouble taking it apart. You just want to take out these 2 screws and take it apart, clean it up, dry it off, slap it back together, call it a night. I mean, Kizer, you focused on the wrong thing. You focused on, making the handle sit in there just perfect, and it sits in there really well. There's no sharp edges there. It feels good in the hand. There's nothing overly rough. Yeah, everything seems to be lined up properly with this jimping and everything. There's no, focus down here again. There's no reason for this to need these pins as far as I can tell. And, even in this hole. Yeah. Get this edge thinner. Quite a lot thinner. Half as thick as it is now. Harden your AEBL for this knife a whole lot more because you want the extra edge retention, because you don't want to be resharpening in the middle of field dressing or skinning a critter. That's just not the time that you want to do it. So you want this edge to be more edge retention, longer lasting edge retention, and you want it thinner so it'll actually do the job you want, because the thicker this edge is, the harder it is to do a good job of field dressing and skinning. It just is. You want a thin edge. And so those are the main complaints. And you've heard the other complaints as well, about the sheath and the stuff that I've said about that. So mainly because of the steel type and how thick this edge is, I don't recommend this knife. I might send this to get reground. I got my custom knife friend in Ontario, David Mary. He does a really good job with regrinds. He could grind this thinner for me. Or I could grind it thinner myself, just, about a centimeter. Because if you sharpen Scandi grinds, you can do this too, just for a big edge off, even if it's just a 1/4 inch up, change that grind angle, bring it thinner down to the edge. That would make this a whole lot better. Maybe I'll just do that and make this thing much more efficient. It's going to make it look a little ugly right in at the sharpener's choil, but I haven't mentioned the sharpener's choil yet. That's done very well right there. But this is too thick, especially near the tip. It gets, like the measurement that I gave you for the thickness, that's in the area where my fingers are. Up here, this last little bit towards the tip, it's over a millimeter thick. It's over a 1/16 of an inch thick there. That's just, it's just too thick. So Kizer, if you make another run of these, even if you only make one change, make it the thickness behind the grind right here. Get that less. But hopefully you'll make some of the other changes that I suggest too. And hopefully you'll consider sending me knives, because if you look at my other Kizer reviews, I'm not just negative on you guys. I really like this company. Kizer makes good knives. Not all of them, but what company does. I really like Ganzo. There's some of their knives I've just hated. I really like Sandra & Mew. There's a couple of their knives I've not liked at all. I really like Real Steel knives. I could go on and on and on. Civivi, sorry, I'm not going to try to list all the brands, but everybody makes some mistakes every once in a while, and this knife, I think, is a mistake overall. But I really like the general design, so hopefully they can make it better. So thank you so much for watching my video. I really do appreciate you stopping by and watching and sharing this video with your friends. And if you've not yet subscribed, please consider subscribing. It really would help the channel out an awful lot in terms of getting promotion through the algorithm, so that other people can find this. I don't do this for money. I don't have YouTube income coming from the advertisement. I got none of that. I do this because I like knives, and I like them an awful lot. So thanks for watching, and remember friends, cut towards your chum, not your thumb.